everybody, and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Post. I'm Sid Rosenberg for OpenSports.com and, of course, the National Football Post. Let's help you get your lineup set for Week 5 of the NFL season. We'll also get you thinking about the stretch run. Here's my main man, Joe Fortenbaugh, the great fantasy expert at NF Post. Joe, how are you, pal?
Morning, Sid. How's it going?
Everything's going very, very well. Exciting football taking place. Some guys with big efforts last week. Joe, 2 big transactions going down on Wednesday. Let's talk about Braylon Edwards first and his fantasy value with the Jets in the immediate future as well as the long term. He's got the Dolphins on Monday night. Braylon Edwards as a New York Jet.
He's going to be starting Monday night. He expects to play right away. The Jets want to get him in the lineup. It was a great move because New York identified a weakness they had on their team. They have a very strong defense, very strong offensive line, great running game. The key was to build up the wide receiving core, and that's exactly what they did. Edwards is going to be running a system he's familiar with in Cleveland. It's not going to be too difficult to make the transition. The only thing to watch for is how long it takes for him and quarterback Mark Sanchez to get on the same page. But other than that, you can look to see him making impact relatively quickly.
No, I agree. Jericho Contra on one side already has great chemistry with Mark Sanchez. The other question is, will Braylon Edwards stay in trouble off the football field? Of course, the other big news here, Joe, was Michael Crabtree finally getting a deal done with San Francisco. Do you expect him to have any impact with the Niners anytime soon?
I do not. I would recommend that if anyone thought about picking him up in their fantasy league, the only reason they do it is so that they can trade him to someone desperate for wide receiver help. Crabtree was not around for any of the preseason. He played in none of the preseason games. He's played in none of the first 4 weeks, and he wasn't in training camp. As of up till yesterday, he had never even caught a pass from quarterback Sean Hill, and who knows if he had ever worked with an NFL cornerback before. He needs to learn the playbook. He needs to learn patterns. He needs to build chemistry with his quarterback. There's so much work he needs to do right now. He's not going to be able to make a serious fantasy impact this year.
All right, fair enough. The Niners, by the way, 3-1 without him. Speaking of first-rounders, Joe, what advice do you have for fantasy owners that have stash guys like Beanie Wells and Jeremy Maclin on their roster? Have you heard about these guys getting more of an opportunity anytime soon this season?
Well, if you've got them stashed on your roster and you're in good shape and have enough players that you can start and you're still competitive, then you're fine. You can hold on to those guys. Wells has a very good matchup this weekend as Arizona hosts the Houston Texans. Prior to the game last week against Oakland, Houston was 32nd in run defense. They were giving up over 200 yards a game. Everybody was slashing through them. So this is a great opportunity for starter Tim Hightower as well as for Beanie Wells to get in there, get some touches, and make some plays. I would expect Wells to put up some moderate numbers this weekend. You can consider him a flex option for owners in deeper leagues. As far as Jeremy Maclin's concerned, he's pretty far down the depth chart in Philadelphia. Several wide receivers ahead of him, Deshaun Jackson, Kevin Curtis. A lot of times they go to Jason Avant. So right now, Maclin is kind of a work in progress. He stepped in nicely a couple weeks ago before Philadelphia went on the bye when they were playing Kansas City, had a few catches. So he's kind of lying in the weeds, not a consistent starter. Don't look to him on a regular basis.
Joe, any of the rookies out there you recommend grabbing right now?
If Kenny Britt, the wide receiver from the Tennessee Titans, is available, I'd recommend getting him. He's been consistent on a weekly basis, has yet to find the end zone, but has already caught for over 200 yards this season. Kerry Collins seems to like targeting him. He makes an impact on the field. Kenny Britt from Tennessee is someone that can help you.
Here's a scenario, Joe. You're at the top of the standings. That usually means you're at the bottom of the waiver wire. Alternate ways to improve your roster, lower tier guys to target as buy stopgaps based on matchups.
Well, what you want to do if you're in a situation like that is, if you've got a good squad, you don't necessarily need to make moves on waivers. The key for you is going to be, if you're looking to build the team, you're going to have to build it through a trade. Owners are very hesitant in fantasy football to trade. They don't want to come out on the wrong end of the deal and then have to hear about it for an entire year. That's why they always feel as if they're being cheated. So I would recommend try to make a trade. If you're at the bottom of the waiver wire, you just kind of wait it out.
All right, toss-ups. Here's the best part of the show, Joe. Right now, right here, Derek Anderson, quarterback for Cleveland, up against Buffalo, against Matt Schaub, quarterback for Houston, up against the Falcons.
I'd go with Matt Schaub. Matt Schaub's going to have a big week. He's got the Arizona Cardinals. This is going to be a passing attack game. They're going to be throwing all over the field. Arizona's going to need to do the same. I'd say Matt Schaub's going to have a very big week.
Running backs here, D'Angelo Williams of the Panthers versus the Redskins, Joe, or the rookie Knowshon Marino for the Broncos against New England.
I'm going to go Knowshon Marino this weekend. He's been producing on a weekly basis. He's looked very good for the Denver Broncos lately. Correll Buckhalter is out. Denver's at home. New England's coming to town. New England has a fairly good run defense right now. I'm still going to go with Knowshon Marino.
Lions running back Kevin Smith versus the Steelers, or Rams running back Steven Jackson versus the unbeaten Vikings?
Terrible matchups for both of them. I would go with Steven Jackson. Minnesota's going to be a very tough defense, but it seems like Jackson gets enough touches to put a few points up every week. Smith, on the other hand, has a very, very physical matchup with the Steelers. The Steelers completely shut down the San Diego Chargers last week. I like Steven Jackson.
Joe, Pierre Garçon of the Colts versus Tennessee, or Wes Welker of the Patriots versus the unbeaten Broncos?
Tough call. Once again, I'm going to go Pierre Garçon from the Indianapolis Colts. I know it might seem like a little bit of a shock to go against Welker, but he's coming off the knee injury. He did play last week, didn't put up monster numbers until I see him come back and start producing consistently. I'm going to take a shot on a guy like Garçon, who has either found the end zone or caught a few passes for some big yards the past few weeks. Excuse me.
League-leading wide receiver for the Giants, not the Panthers, Steve Smith versus the Raiders' best defensive back, or Roddy White of the Falcons versus that Niners secondary?
Well, this is a good one right here. I'm going to go with Roddy White. He's set to blow up. It's the tough 49ers defense. They're on the road, but he's a very talented wide receiver, can stretch the field vertically, has an excellent quarterback in Matt Ryan. With the running game, Michael Turner looking to make an impact this week, I would go with Roddy White.
I like that pick, even though I'm a Giant fan. I like Steve Smith. As always, Joe, excellent work. Thank you for the info. We'll see you again on Tuesday for more fantasy coverage right here on the Fantasy Football Post. Thank you, Joe.
My pleasure, Sid. Thank you.
All right, buddy. You can also follow Joe at Joe Fortenbaugh on Twitter for more great fantasy updates. And, of course, read Joe Fortenbaugh's work each and every day at nfpost.com. For Joe, I'm Sid Rosenberg. And as always, folks, enjoy the football.